The day an entire species willingly gave away its own blood, the galaxy realized it had misunderstood humanity. The observation platform drifted silently beyond Earth's orbit, hidden behind layers of adaptive light-bending fields that had fooled every telescope ever pointed toward the stars. Inside the dim command chamber, Scout Saralyn stood motionless before a wall of living crystal displays as streams of biological data flowed across the air like liquid sunlight. Every heartbeat below was cataloged. Every breath was measured. Every civilization left patterns. After 12 years studying developing worlds, she had learned one unshakable truth. Every intelligent species protected its biological resources above all else. Water, energy, genetic material, blood. Nothing valuable was ever surrendered without receiving something greater in return. That law had remained constant across 419 member civilizations of the Galactic Accord. Until today, a sharp tone interrupted the chamber's silence. An artificial intelligence projected a flashing symbol across the central display. Anomalous civilization event detected. Saralyn narrowed her luminous golden eyes. Display source. The image expanded into a quiet building in Columbus, Ohio. Humans entered through glass doors one after another. No signs of distress. No military presence. No emergency evacuation. They smiled. They laughed. Some carried coffee. Others chatted with strangers they would likely never see again. The biological scanners identified elevated heart rates, stable oxygen levels, and normal emotional responses. No coercion indicators detected. Saralyn folded her hands behind her back. Purpose. The AI answered immediately. Blood donation center. She blinked once. Clarify. Humans are voluntarily transferring approximately 1 pint of blood per individual. Her expression remained calm, but her pulse accelerated by nearly 8%. The AI noticed before she did. Emotional deviation detected. Impossible, she whispered. Verify compensation. New windows appeared. Free cookies. Bottled water. Juice. A commemorative t-shirt after multiple visits. Saralyn stared at the list for several long seconds. Financial exchange? Minimal. Political obligation? None detected. Religious ritual? Negative. Population control? Negative. She looked down through the transparent observation floor toward the blue planet spinning peacefully beneath the station. Across dozens of cities, identical facilities appeared. New York, Dallas, Seattle, Atlanta, Phoenix. Thousands of humans waited patiently in orderly lines while nurses welcomed them with warm smiles instead of security escorts. The scanners tracked crimson blood flowing through sterile tubes into carefully labeled bags destined for hospitals filled with complete strangers. No bargaining. No contracts. No expectation of repayment. One elderly man finished donating and quietly thanked the medical staff before leaving with nothing more than a small carton of orange juice. A young college student checked her phone while waiting for her turn, looking mildly inconvenienced by the delay instead of frightened by the procedure. A construction worker still wearing dusty boots joked with another donor he had only just met. None behaved like citizens surrendering one of the most valuable biological assets known to intelligent life. Saralyn requested historical records. The database expanded instantly. Millions of documented donations spanning generations. Entire families returning every few months. Communities organizing volunteer drives after storms, accidents, and tragedies. Healthy individuals offering part of themselves so someone they would never meet might wake up tomorrow. The AI finally spoke again. Existing galactic behavioral models cannot explain observed activity. Probability of hidden transactional motive, 0.03%. Saralyn continued watching the quiet line of ordinary people moving forward one by one. Somewhere among them, one human would soon become the answer to a question the galaxy had never thought to ask. By sunrise, Saralyn was no longer watching Earth from orbit. She was walking among its people. Her adaptive field had reshaped every visible feature until she appeared to be an ordinary young woman in her early 30s. Her luminous eyes softened into hazel. The faint glow beneath her porcelain skin disappeared beneath a perfectly simulated human complexion. Even the subtle rhythm of her breathing synchronized with the medical records she had spent the night studying. Nothing about her appearance invited a second glance, and that alone fascinated her. On her world, identity was displayed with pride through light, fabric, and biological markings. On Earth, people disappeared comfortably into crowds. The automatic doors slid open with a gentle whisper as cool air carrying the scent of disinfectant and fresh coffee drifted into the parking lot. Inside, sunlight poured through wide windows, reflecting across polished floors where volunteers greeted every visitor with genuine smiles. Nobody checked social status. Nobody requested proof of wealth. Every person received the same warm welcome. Sarah slowed her pace, allowing the countless details to settle into memory. The waiting room was quiet, yet alive with conversation. An elderly couple laughed over a crossword puzzle. A firefighter still wearing his department shirt filled out paperwork beside a young woman carrying a college backpack. A delivery driver glanced at his watch before smiling at a nurse who apologized for the brief wait. There was no tension, no visible reward, only patience. Her internal scanner quietly measured every heartbeat within 30 feet. Minor nervousness, mild anticipation, stable emotional patterns. Nothing suggested sacrifice. Then she noticed him. Nathan Brooks stepped through the entrance carrying a travel mug that smelled faintly of black coffee. He stood a little over 6 feet tall with an athletic build earned through years of physical work rather than hours inside a gym. His navy blue jacket showed signs of regular use, and the small emergency medical services patch stitched onto one sleeve immediately matched records stored inside her observational archive. 34 years old. Paramedic. Local resident. Regular donor. No criminal history. No unusual financial activity. Psychological profile indicated exceptional consistency in volunteer service over the previous decade. He held the door open for a woman, balancing a stroller while thanking another man who had unknowingly stepped aside to let him pass. Neither interaction lasted more than a few seconds, yet both carried the effortless rhythm of habit rather than performance. Nathan signed his name at the reception desk before noticing Sarah studying the registration forms with deliberate hesitation. He smiled with the relaxed confidence of someone who had spent years comforting strangers during frightening moments. First time, he asked. Sarah hesitated just long enough to imitate uncertainty. Yes, I am not familiar with the process. Do not worry, Nathan replied. They make it really easy. Just answer the questions honestly, drink plenty of water, and they will walk you through everything. He pointed toward an empty chair beside him. You can sit here if you want. They usually call people pretty quickly. She accepted with a quiet nod, carefully observing every movement. There was no curiosity about her background, no attempt to impress her, no expectation of gratitude. He simply noticed someone who appeared uncertain and chose to make the morning a little easier. Across every civilization Sarah had studied, kindness almost always carried hidden calculations. Influence, reputation, obligation, future advantage. Yet as her scanner continued collecting biological data, it detected nothing beyond a calm heartbeat and a sincere desire to help someone he believed was nervous. For the first time since arriving on Earth, the impossible mystery no longer existed inside statistical reports. It was sitting beside her, smiling as though generosity required no explanation at all. The collection chair beside Nathan became available first. A nurse greeted him by name, verified a few routine questions, and thanked him for coming back again. He answered with the relaxed familiarity of someone stopping by a favorite neighborhood cafe instead of participating in a procedure that every galactic civilization classified as a protected biological transfer. Sarah remained in the waiting area, pretending to finish paperwork while every hidden sensor beneath her synthetic skin recorded the room with microscopic precision. Nathan rolled up his sleeve without hesitation. The medical staff explained each step, even though he clearly knew the process by heart. He listened anyway. He smiled anyway. Respect, she noted, appeared to flow in both directions. Nothing in the interaction suggested authority. Nobody issued commands. Nobody demanded compliance. It was simply cooperation. The moment the collection began, Sarah transmitted an encrypted burst through a quantum relay invisible to every instrument on Earth. Less than 3 seconds later, the observation station answered. The chamber above the planet came alive as analysts, behavioral scientists, economists, and xenobiologists gathered around her live transmission. One senior advisor spoke first. Scout Sarah, Confirm the event. Confirmed. She answered silently through neural communication. The transfer is voluntary. Another voice interrupted immediately. There must be indirect compensation. Reputation credits. Family obligations. Future medical privileges. No evidence supports those conclusions. A third analyst projected probability charts into her vision. Every civilization exchanges biological resources through measurable value. Search deeper. Hidden incentives always exist. Saralyn looked back toward Nathan. He was talking with the nurse about a community baseball game while the collection bag slowly filled. His heart rate remained calm. His stress indicators barely changed. There was no trace of regret. No physiological pattern associated with reluctant sacrifice. Only quiet conversation about the weather and an upcoming holiday weekend. She lowered the transmission volume and focused on the people around him. A retired schoolteacher finished donating and thanked the volunteers for their time. A young accountant arrived during his lunch break because he said it fit better into his schedule. A married couple compared stickers they had collected from previous visits over the years. Every action contradicted accepted galactic sociology. Resources this valuable were expected to create hierarchy. Instead, they created community. The analysts continued debating above her. Perhaps they are genetically conditioned. Negative. Perhaps refusal carries social punishment. Negative. Perhaps they misunderstand the biological value. Saralyn almost answered immediately, but stopped herself. That possibility deserved investigation. She quietly accessed public educational records, medical websites, school textbooks, and government health information. Humans clearly understood the importance of blood. They knew exactly what they were giving away. They simply also knew the human body would replace it with time. More importantly, they believed another person's chance to survive was worth temporary inconvenience. The distinction unsettled every assumption she possessed. Nathan finished the donation a few minutes later. The nurse placed a small bandage on his arm and handed him a bottle of water and a carton of orange juice. "Take it easy today," she said with a smile. "I will," he replied. He thanked every member of the staff before walking toward the refreshment area. Nobody applauded him. Nobody announced his generosity. The room simply continued welcoming the next donor. Saralyn watched the quiet rhythm continue, and for the first time in her career, she began to suspect that the greatest mystery on Earth was not hidden inside laboratories, governments, or military bases. It was hidden inside ordinary people who believed that helping someone they would never meet was simply the normal thing to do. Nathan stepped outside beneath a bright Ohio afternoon with a bottle of water in one hand and his travel mug in the other. The summer air carried the scent of freshly cut grass from a nearby park, and traffic rolled steadily through the intersection beyond the donation center. To Saralyn, the world looked almost disappointingly ordinary. There were no ceremonies celebrating generosity, no public monuments honoring those who had given part of themselves to strangers. The people who left the building simply returned to their lives as though nothing remarkable had happened. She followed from a respectful distance, her adaptive field quietly masking every trace of alien technology hidden beneath her human appearance. The Galactic Accord had instructed her to uncover the invisible reward. Behind human behavior, every previous civilization had possessed one: prestige, influence, future obligation, hidden profit. She intended to find it before the evidence forced the impossible conclusion. Nathan stopped at a neighborhood grocery store on his way home. Saralyn entered a minute later, blending naturally among shoppers pushing carts through brightly lit aisles. She watched him return a loose shopping cart that someone else had abandoned in the parking lot. No one noticed. No one thanked him. Inside, he paused to let an elderly veteran reach a carton of milk before taking his own. He exchanged a few cheerful words with the cashier, remembered her name from the embroidered tag on her uniform, and wished her luck on an upcoming college exam she had mentioned weeks earlier. His scanner profile remained perfectly ordinary. No elevated dopamine response from praise. No measurable satisfaction linked to social recognition. He behaved this way because, somehow, it had become his default setting. That realization unsettled Saralyn more than any anomaly she had ever investigated. She expanded her surveillance over the following several days. Nathan worked long shifts as a paramedic, responding to routine medical calls with steady professionalism and quiet patience. During breaks, he helped new coworkers locate equipment without being asked. He carried extra bottles of water inside the ambulance because summer heat often surprised older patients waiting outside clinics. When a frightened child needed reassurance during a routine transport, Nathan crouched to eye level and spoke with calm kindness until the nervous expression slowly disappeared. He never mentioned his blood donations. He never spoke about sacrifice. To him, these actions appeared connected by the same invisible thread. Helping was not an event. It was simply the way he moved through the world. Each evening, Saralyn uploaded another report. Each morning, the analysts returned with new theories. Perhaps he belongs to an influential organization. She investigated. He did not. Perhaps religious doctrine requires these behaviors. Records showed no such obligation. Perhaps local culture rewards cooperation through hidden social ranking. Statistical comparisons across multiple American cities produced the same conclusion. Millions of unrelated individuals displayed similar acts of consideration without measurable expectation of personal gain. The pattern was repeating everywhere. While reviewing neighborhood surveillance, Saralyn observed Nathan notice a young mother struggling to load groceries while balancing a sleeping toddler. Without hesitation, he carried 2 heavy bags to her vehicle, smiled politely, and walked away before she could offer anything in return. He never asked for her phone number. He never introduced himself beyond his first name. Within seconds, he disappeared into the afternoon crowd, leaving behind only a brief moment that would likely never be remembered by anyone except the woman he had helped and the silent observer from another world. Standing beneath the shade of a maple tree, Saralyn slowly realized that the blood donation center had never been the mystery. It had only been the most visible expression of something far larger, something woven so deeply into ordinary human lives that the people themselves no longer seemed to notice it at all. Late on Friday afternoon, rain clouds gathered over the city, covering the streets with a cool gray light that softened every sound. Nathan finished the last paperwork from his shift before walking toward a small neighborhood diner tucked between an old bookstore and a family-owned pharmacy. It was not a remarkable place. The coffee was simple, the booths were worn smooth from decades of conversations, and the waitress greeted nearly every customer by name. Saralyn entered several minutes later, choosing a table near the window where she could continue her quiet observation without attracting attention. She had followed Nathan for almost a week, yet every report she submitted returned with the same response from the Galactic Accord. Continue searching. Hidden motivations remained probable. She no longer believed that conclusion herself, but evidence was still required. Nathan noticed her almost immediately. "You are the woman from the donation center," he said with an easy smile. "I remember you. Did everything go all right?" Saralyn nodded carefully. "Yes, thank you for your help that day." "Glad to hear it." He gestured toward the empty chair across from him. "You are welcome to join me if you want. The pie here is better than it looks." She accepted after a brief pause, calculating that direct conversation would produce more valuable information than distant surveillance. Steam rose from 2 fresh mugs of coffee while rain tapped gently against the windows. For several quiet minutes, they spoke about ordinary things. The changing weather, traffic downtown, the baseball game scheduled for the weekend. Nathan never attempted to dominate the conversation or impress his unexpected companion. He listened as naturally as he spoke, leaving comfortable moments of silence between sentences. Finally, Saralyn asked the question that had occupied every analyst aboard the observation station. "May I ask something personal?" Nathan nodded. "Sure. Why do you donate blood so often?" He looked down at the coffee in his hands instead of answering immediately. The silence stretched just long enough to feel honest rather than dramatic. When he finally spoke, his voice remained calm. "When I was 16, my younger sister needed emergency surgery after a medical complication. Everything happened really fast." He smiled faintly, remembering rather than reliving the fear. "The doctors told my parents they had enough skilled people to perform the operation. What they needed was blood. Complete strangers had donated before any of us ever arrived at the hospital. People we never met made sure it was already waiting." Saralyn remained perfectly still. Nathan continued quietly. "My sister recovered. She graduated from college. She has 2 little boys now. She gets to live the life she has because someone took an hour out of an ordinary day and decided another family mattered." He looked out the rain-speckled window where cars passed beneath glowing traffic lights. "I never learned their names. I never had the chance to thank them. His smile returned, gentle and certain. So I figured maybe one day somebody else would need the same chance. Maybe my donation helps. Someone I will never meet. That seems like a pretty good way to say thank you. Saralyn searched his face for hesitation, exaggeration, or concealed self-interest. Her biological scanner detected only steady breathing, quiet gratitude, and genuine affection when he mentioned his sister. Nothing more, nothing less. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she understood that humans did not always repay kindness by returning it to the person who had given it. Sometimes they passed it forward to someone completely unknown, trusting that compassion could travel farther than memory ever could. Above the clouds, the observation station received her newest report. It contained no complicated behavioral equations, no economic projections, and no hidden incentives. Only one sentence appeared beneath the mission summary. Human generosity may not function as an exchange. It may function as a legacy. The emergency alert reached Saralyn just before dawn. It did not originate from Earth. It came through an encrypted Galactic Accord channel reserved for diplomatic crises, carrying a priority level she had encountered only twice during her career. Every display inside her concealed orbital station shifted from peaceful observation to deep crimson status indicators. A transport vessel carrying delegates from 3-member civilizations had suffered a catastrophic systems failure while passing through the outer boundary of Earth's solar system. The crew had stabilized the vessel, but one passenger remained in critical condition. The patient was the young daughter of Ambassador Thalen, one of the Accord's most respected representatives. Her condition was unlike any Earth physician had ever encountered, yet the underlying problem was startlingly familiar. She required an immediate biological transfusion. Saralyn studied the medical report in complete silence. The child species possessed an oxygen-carrying compound remarkably similar to human blood, the result of evolutionary chemistry that had developed along unexpectedly parallel paths. The compatibility should have been impossible, but the Accord's own medical archives revealed an astonishing possibility. A rare protein sequence found in an exceptionally small fraction of humans could temporarily stabilize her condition. The marker itself was uncommon, but survival depended on an even rarer combination of that protein, a specific blood phenotype, and a unique immune signature capable of preventing catastrophic cellular rejection. The Accord searched every biological survey collected from known civilizations. No compatible donor existed beyond Earth. Artificial synthesis required at least 48 hours. The damaged transport could not survive another 12. One senior medical advisor finally spoke the words everyone had hoped to avoid. "We require a human donor." Silence filled the chamber. Then another official answered. Accord Directive 47 prohibits direct biological exchange between pre-contact civilizations and member species. The cultural contamination risk is unacceptable. Saralyn listened without interrupting. She understood the law. She had enforced it herself on previous assignments. Entire civilizations had been protected because observers remained invisible. One saved life could never outweigh the long-term development of an emerging world. At least that had always been the accepted principle. Yet the image of Nathan quietly explaining why he donated blood refused to leave her thoughts. Someone she would never meet deserved a chance. Those words echoed through every calculation. She opened a secure medical database and entered a single name. Nathan Brooks. His donation history appeared instantly. Blood type, genetic markers, routine health screenings. Every record updated within days of his most recent visit because of the civilian donation network Earth maintained so faithfully. The station's quantum processors compared his complete biological profile against the ambassador's daughter. The probability meter climbed steadily. 82%, 91%, 98.7% compatibility. A second analysis immediately scanned millions of anonymous medical records collected during decades of remote observation. Candidate after candidate failed because one essential marker was missing. Others possessed the protein but lacked the required immune signature. Several possible matches had not donated blood in years, leaving no recent biological profile accurate enough for emergency confirmation. Nathan remained the only living human whose current medical records, verified genetic markers, and complete compatibility could be confirmed within the child's remaining survival window. The chamber felt completely silent. One analyst whispered, almost afraid of the answer. "Scout, he is not simply the closest match. He is the only donor we can identify and verify before the window closes." A formal order arrived moments later. Observation only. Maintain planetary secrecy. Await further instruction. Saralyn read the directive twice before closing the transmission. She remained motionless for several long moments, watching Earth's blue horizon turn beneath the station while the countdown continued without mercy. Somewhere in Ohio, Nathan was likely preparing for another shift, unaware that a child beyond the stars needed exactly what he had spent years giving so freely to strangers on Earth. Saralyn had spent her entire career believing that rules protected civilizations. Nathan had shown her that compassion protected people. For the first time, those two truths stood on opposite sides of the same decision. As Earth's sunrise painted the edge of the planet with brilliant gold, a second message appeared across her command display. Ambassador's daughter entering irreversible decline. Estimated survival window, less than 6 hours. Saralyn closed her eyes for only a moment, remembering Nathan's quiet voice inside the little diner and the simple promise he had lived by ever since strangers saved his sister. When she opened them again, the answer waiting before her no longer felt like a choice between duty and compassion. It felt like a choice between fear and humanity. She reached toward the communication controls. The mission she had accepted months earlier was about observing humanity. She suddenly realized it had become something far more difficult. It was about deciding whether humanity had already changed her. Nathan had just finished checking the medical supplies inside his ambulance when his phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it. Years in emergency medicine had taught him that unknown calls were usually wrong numbers or insurance surveys. Something made him answer anyway. Nathan Brooks speaking. A calm female voice replied. "My name is Saralyn. We met at the blood donation center." He smiled as he remembered the quiet woman who had seemed so curious about the process. "Of course. Is everything all right?" She looked through the observation chamber toward the distant sunrise spreading across Earth before choosing each word with extraordinary care. "Someone needs help. There is almost no time left." Nathan heard something in her voice that no training could imitate. It was not panic. It was responsibility. "Tell me where to go." There was no question about payment. No request for details. No hesitation. Saralyn closed the communication channel for a moment while alarms continued echoing across the orbital station. Several senior officials appeared as shimmering projections around her command platform. "Scout Saralyn," one of them said firmly, "you are preparing to violate Directive 47. "Yes," she answered quietly. "Contact with a developing civilization is prohibited." "I am aware. The consequences extend beyond your commission." "I know." Another official stepped forward. "One human life cannot be permitted to influence interstellar law." Saralyn looked toward the image of the ambassador's young daughter resting peacefully inside an advanced medical chamber, surrounded by physicians who had exhausted every available option. Then she remembered Nathan sitting inside the neighborhood diner, speaking about strangers who had saved his sister without ever expecting gratitude. Humanity had already answered this question. The Galactic Accord simply had not understood the answer. She disabled the station's observation protocols and activated a concealed atmospheric shuttle. The compact vessel descended through layers of cloud before landing silently inside a secluded maintenance hangar abandoned decades earlier. Nathan arrived less than 20 minutes later, still wearing his emergency medical services uniform after leaving work early. He stepped inside expecting perhaps a confidential government operation. Instead, he stopped completely still. The craft resting before him reflected soft silver light unlike any aircraft ever built on Earth. Every smooth curve seemed grown rather than manufactured. The air carried the faint scent of rain mixed with something impossibly clean, like cold air after fresh snowfall. A doorway opened without a sound. Saralyn stepped forward, no longer hiding who she truly was. Her simulated appearance dissolved into shimmering light, revealing porcelain skin with a subtle pearlescent glow beneath the morning sun. Golden eyes with intricate crystalline patterns met Nathan's steady gaze. Her elegant uniform flowed with living fibers that shifted gently like liquid silk. She looked unmistakably alien, yet carried herself with quiet dignity instead of intimidation. Nathan stared for several long seconds. Every explanation he had ever accepted about humanity's place in the universe quietly rearranged itself. Finally, he smiled with remarkable calm. So that explains why you asked so many questions. Sarah almost forgot the urgency of the moment. You are not afraid? Nathan glanced toward the open doorway of the extraordinary vessel before looking back at her. I have spent my whole career meeting people on the worst days of their lives. Usually the first thing they need is someone willing to help before asking every question. His expression softened. Who needs blood? For the first time in generations, an officer of the Galactic Accord found herself unable to speak immediately. Every prediction about human behavior had anticipated fear, confusion, bargaining, or disbelief. None had predicted that the very first response after learning humanity was not alone would simply be a quiet question about the patient waiting to be saved. The shuttle rose through the morning clouds without a sound, leaving Earth bathed in the warm colors of sunrise, as though nothing extraordinary had happened below. Nathan remained seated beside Sarah, watching the blue horizon slowly curve into the darkness of space. His heartbeat accelerated only when the stars appeared without the shimmer of atmosphere between them. Wonder replaced fear. Every lesson he had learned as a child, while staring into the night sky, suddenly felt incomplete. Sarah studied him from the corner of her eye. Every psychological model aboard the Galactic Accord predicted overwhelming emotional instability after first contact. Instead, Nathan quietly admired the view before speaking almost to himself. It is even more beautiful than I imagined. Minutes later, the shuttle entered the concealed diplomatic vessel drifting beyond the moon's orbit. The reception chamber glowed with soft white light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Physicians from several civilizations waited in complete silence. Their elegant uniforms displayed the insignias of worlds Nathan had never known existed. Some possessed crystalline eyes. Others carried delicate patterns beneath pale skin unlike any human biology. Yet every face reflected the same expression. Hope balanced against time. Ambassador Thalen stepped forward. Tall and dignified, he lowered his head with unmistakable respect toward the human standing before him. Nathan Brooks, he said carefully, pronouncing every syllable with deliberate precision. My family owes you gratitude before you have done anything. Nathan offered a small smile. Let us help your daughter first. No speeches followed. No negotiations began. The medical team guided Nathan into a pristine treatment room where advanced diagnostic systems completed in seconds what would have required hours on Earth. Streams of golden symbols flowed across transparent displays before one physician looked toward Sarah. Compatibility confirmed. The projection was accurate. Relief spread quietly through the room. The carefully controlled procedure began under the supervision of both human medical principles stored in Earth's public databases and the Accord's most advanced biological technology. Nathan remained calm throughout, asking only one question every few minutes. How is she doing? He never asked whether anyone would remember his name. He never asked what reward awaited him. His attention remained entirely fixed on a child he had not yet seen. Beyond the observation glass, members of the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Their cultural historians whispered among themselves while behavioral scientists revised decades of accepted theory in real time. One senior counselor finally broke the silence. He still believes she is simply another patient. Another answered softly, no. I believe he understands exactly who she is. He simply does not believe that changes her value. As the final medical indicators stabilized, a gentle tone echoed through the chamber. The young girl opened her luminous eyes slowly before reaching for her father's hand. Ambassador Thalen closed his eyes with quiet relief as the physicians confirmed complete recovery. Around the room, countless experts celebrated the triumph of extraordinary science. Sarah knew better. Technology had only carried the gift. The gift itself had begun months earlier in a small blood donation center where ordinary people lined up expecting nothing in return. She walked toward Nathan after the procedure ended. He accepted a bottle of water with the same grateful smile he always wore after donating on Earth. The familiar gesture struck her with unexpected force. Across two civilizations separated by unimaginable distances, his routine had never changed. Before anyone else could speak, Nathan looked toward the recovering child through the observation window and quietly asked, "She is going to be all right now, isn't she?" Saralyn felt every certainty she had once carried dissolve into silence. At that moment, she finally understood the truth her mission had been sent to discover. Humanity's greatest strength had never been hidden inside its technology, its armies, or its history. It had always lived inside ordinary people who never needed to know someone's world before deciding that their life mattered. When the medical team confirmed that Ambassador Thalen's daughter would make a full recovery, the celebration never came. Instead, an unfamiliar silence settled across the diplomatic vessel, deeper than applause and far more powerful. Hundreds of representatives from worlds separated by thousands of light years simply watched the human who had quietly finished drinking a bottle of water and was thanking the physicians for taking such good care of their patient. Nathan stood exactly as he had inside the blood donation center back in Ohio. There was no dramatic speech, no expectation of recognition. To him, this morning had followed the same simple pattern as every other donation he had ever made. Someone needed help. He happened to be able to help. That was enough. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened immediately. Saralyn stood alone before the highest tribunal of the Accord, fully aware that she had violated Directive 47 by revealing their existence to an emerging civilization. The presiding counselor looked down at her with solemn eyes. "Scout Saralyn, do you deny initiating unauthorized first contact? No. Do you deny transporting a human aboard a classified diplomatic vessel? No. Do you deny violating one of the oldest protections in our history?" Saralyn lifted her head without hesitation. "No. I accept full responsibility." The chamber remained silent for several long moments before Ambassador Thalen slowly stepped forward with his daughter standing beside him, her strength already returning. Every delegate expected a statement about law. Instead, the ambassador bowed deeply towards Saralyn before turning to face the council. "If punishment must be given," he said calmly, "begin with me. Had this scout obeyed our law, my daughter would not be standing beside me today." He then looked toward Nathan, who appeared slightly uncomfortable being the center of so much attention. "Your greatest mistake was believing this human was an exception." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Thalen continued, "Scout Saralyn's investigation proved otherwise. Millions on Earth perform the same act every year. They surrender part of themselves for strangers they will never meet. Not because they are commanded, not because they are rewarded, because they believe another life matters." The Council's historians quietly submitted revised cultural reports while economists withdrew centuries of behavioral assumptions. Biologists amended long-accepted definitions of biological resource management. Sociologists deleted the phrase universal transactional instinct from official educational archives. One ordinary human had not merely saved a child. He had disproven an idea that had shaped galactic civilization for thousands of years. Rather than rewriting centuries of law in a single day, the Council issued an emergency humanitarian exemption allowing Saralyn's actions to stand while a full interstellar review began. In the months that followed, scholars, diplomats, physicians, and cultural observers examined decades of evidence gathered from Earth. Every investigation reached the same conclusion. Humanity's willingness to give without demanding anything in return was not an isolated act. It was a stable cultural pattern. Only then did the Council deliver its final judgment. Directive 47 would remain, but a new article would forever accompany it. Whenever a civilization demonstrated selfless biological generosity as a stable cultural value, compassionate intervention could override absolute non-interference. The amendment became known throughout the Accord simply as the human principle. Saralyn received no punishment. Instead, she was appointed the first ambassador assigned exclusively to Earth, chosen because she had become the first observer to truly understand it. Before Nathan returned home, Ambassador Thalen approached carrying a small crystal sphere no larger than a baseball. Inside, countless points of light drifted slowly like tiny stars suspended in clear water. "This contains the names of every world that exists because my daughter will one day continue the peace agreements she was destined to complete," he said quietly. "It cannot repay what you have done. Nothing can. It can only remind us why we must never forget." Nathan accepted the gift with the same humble smile he had worn all week. I was only doing what somebody once did for my family. Several weeks later, on another bright Saturday morning, Nathan walked back into the same neighborhood blood donation center in Ohio. He signed his name, greeted the nurses, accepted the familiar clipboard, and quietly took his place in line behind complete strangers. On that very same morning, beneath the silver domes of the Galactic Medical Archives, another line quietly formed for the first time in Accord history. Citizens from dozens of worlds stood side by side, waiting patiently to donate their own life-sustaining biological fluid to patients whose names they would never know. No law required their presence. No reward awaited them at the end of the line. A young physician looked at Saralyn with visible disbelief. They came voluntarily. Saralyn watched the first donor step forward, remembering a small donation center in Ohio where an ordinary paramedic had unknowingly changed the course of galactic history. She smiled softly. Yes, she answered. They learned from humanity. Hidden high above Earth's blue sky, the newly commissioned Accord observation station watched both worlds with different eyes than before. Across every display, one sentence had permanently replaced centuries of galactic doctrine. Humanity's rarest resource was never blood. It was the willingness to give it away. And as another ordinary donation began beneath the warm sunlight of Earth, while another began beneath distant alien stars, an entire galaxy finally stopped studying humanity and quietly began becoming a little more human itself.